The crystal spire of the Galactic Council pierced the violet skies of Centauri Prime, its translucent walls refracting starlight into countless rainbow patterns across the grand chamber floor. Ambassador Tyranny moved with deliberate grace, his ancient scales catching the light as he approached the central podium. The chamber held 200 representatives from the most powerful civilizations in known space, yet none possessed the depth of experience the Khazari brought to this crucial session. Esteemed members of the council, Tyranny's voice resonated through the chamber, his translator perfectly matching the subtle harmonics that conveyed respect in dozens of alien languages. I come before you with a warning born from 12,000 years of observation. The Mextorian representative, Controller Vexlin, shifted in his crystalline seat. His species' characteristic impatience showed in the rapid color changes rippling through his translucent form. The Khazari are known for their caution, Ambassador. Some might say overcaution. Tyranny activated the chamber's holographic array. The space above the council filled with images. Ancient Egyptian tombs being uncovered, decades-old cold cases being solved through preserved evidence, shipwrecks being found centuries after their loss. Each image was accompanied by data streams showing dates, timelines, and the resources dedicated to each discovery. Humanity's resolve defies conventional understanding, Tyranny continued. While many species measure commitment in years or decades, humans measure it in centuries. They pass their purposes from generation to generation, treating time itself as merely another obstacle to overcome. The Proximan delegate raised a tendril. These are primitive behaviors, surely, signs of an underdeveloped civilization that will fade as they advance. Tyranny changed the display to show more recent events. 300 years ago, humans discovered microplastics in their oceans. Instead of accepting this as an unchangeable reality, they spent generations cleaning every beach, every seafloor, developing new technologies with each decade until their waters ran clear again. When they found their planet's temperature rising, they didn't adapt or relocate. They spent a century transforming their entire civilization to restore their world's balance. The chamber filled with murmurs as Tyranny displayed humanity's space exploration history. They reached their moon with primitive chemical rockets, using computers less powerful than our personal translators. When one of their lunar missions faced disaster, they solved problems in hours that should have taken months of research. Their first Mars colony suffered near total collapse. Instead of abandoning the project, they analyzed every failure, refined every system, and returned stronger. Controller Vexlin's colors shifted to deep purple, indicating skepticism. These are impressive achievements, Ambassador, but hardly relevant to modern galactic politics. The Mextorian Empire's disciplinary fleet carries weapons that could reduce Earth's defenses to atoms. That, Tyranny said softly, is precisely my point. He gestured, and the holographic display showed Earth's conflicts throughout history. Humans don't evaluate threats based on current capability gaps. They define victory across generations. When faced with technological superiority, they don't surrender, they innovate. When outmatched, they adapt. When defeated, they remember. The Proximan delegate waved dismissively. The Mextorian Empire merely seeks to establish proper order in that sector. A simple show of force, and these humans will understand their place in the galactic community. Tyranny's scales dulled, a sign of deep concern. You assume they think as we do. They don't. Humanity carries within them something unique, the capacity to pass not just knowledge, but purpose from generation to generation. They're capable of maintaining their resolve across timescales that most species can barely comprehend. He lowered his voice, forcing the council members to lean forward. If you attack Earth, you won't be starting a war. You'll be initiating a quest that will become part of their cultural memory. They will pass the story of your aggression from parent to child, transform their civilization around the goal of reaching you, and pursue that purpose until it's fulfilled, whether that takes decades or millennia. The council chamber erupted in dismissive chatter. Theron watched them with ancient eyes, knowing his warning would go unheeded. As he had observed so many times before, technological superiority often bred the most dangerous kind of ignorance, the belief that all species thought and behaved the same way. How long, he wondered, would it take them to realize their mistake? The Europa research station hung like a jewel against Jupiter's swirling storms, its crystalline domes reflecting the gas giant's ethereal light. Inside the primary laboratory, Dr. Sarah Chen was recording observations of deep ocean microorganisms when the first alarm sounded. She looked up from her microscope to see the impossible. 3 Mextorian warships emerging from fold space, their crystalline hulls catching Jovian light like frozen butterflies. All personnel, this is not a drill. Station Director Patel's voice carried across all channels. Unknown vessels approaching. Initiating emergency protocols. The transmission cut off as the first energy pulse struck the station's communications array. Sarah watched through the reinforced viewport as more ships appeared, their formations precise and beautiful in their deadly purpose. The station's automated defenses activated, a web of defensive energy fields shimmering to life. Against civilian research equipment, the Mextorian weapons were overwhelming. The shields lasted exactly 6 seconds. Across the solar system, similar scenes unfolded. The Mars mining colony went dark first, its reinforced bunkers offering little protection against weapons designed to crack open asteroid cores. The long-range colony ships, carrying thousands of sleeping pioneers toward Proxima Centauri, never saw the attacks coming. Their engines simply stopped, leaving them adrift in the endless dark. On Earth, astronomers at the Mauna Kea Observatory noticed the anomalies first. Dr. James Morgan was tracking the colony ship's beacons when they began winking out, one by one. His hands trembled as he sent the alert to Space Command, knowing what each lost signal represented. Families, dreams, futures. The Mextorian flagship, the Crystal Ascendant, took position just beyond lunar orbit. Its commander, High Admiral Vexeth, stood on his pristine bridge with the satisfaction of one who has just completed a minor but necessary task. "Send the terms," he ordered, his crystalline form pulsing with confident blues and greens. The message that reached Earth was precise and formal. "Your expansion ends now. Accept Imperial authority or face further correction." They expected immediate capitulation. What they received instead was silence, a silence that should have worried them far more than any plea for mercy. In Geneva, the Emergency Council gathered in a bunker deep beneath the city. Representatives from every nation sat together, historic rivalries forgotten in the face of an existential threat. They watched in unified silence as the final recordings from their destroyed outposts played across massive screens. "The Europa Station's last transmission," announced General Sarah Hayes, her voice steady, despite the weight of the moment. The screen showed Dr. Chen's final message. "They're targeting civilian infrastructure. Remember what they did here. Remember us." The Mars colony's emergency beacon repeated a single data burst, coordinates, casualty numbers, and weapons signatures. The colony ship's black boxes transmitted their final status. Life support failing. Thousands of colonists still in cryo-sleep, power systems critical. In orbit, the International Space Station's crew provided real-time intelligence, documenting Mextorian ship movements and capabilities until they too were silenced. Their last transmission was simple: make them regret this. The council chamber remained quiet after the recordings ended. Then President Chen of the Pan-Pacific Alliance stood, her aged face set with determination. "We all know what must be done." For the first time in human history, the vote was unanimous. The Eternal Hunt Protocol was activated. Within hours, every telescope on Earth turned skyward, tracking Mextorian energy signatures. Engineering students were pulled from universities to study alien technology fragments. Military academies began incorporating xenobiology into their core curriculum. Parents started teaching their children to recognize Mextorian ship designs alongside basic mathematics. As the Mextorian fleet departed, satisfied with their display of power, they remained unaware of the changes already beginning on the planet below. They didn't notice the orbital defense satellites recording their engine signatures, or the prototype ships being quietly modified in hidden shipyards beneath the Pacific. They didn't realize that humanity was already preparing for a hunt that would span centuries. A hunt that would be remembered in stories passed from parent to child, in songs sung across generations, in a promise written into the very foundation of human civilization. We will remember. We will find you. We will make this right. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, the forgotten seed mining facility known as Station Deep Horizon hummed with new purpose. Dr. Maya Santos stood at the observation window, watching as massive fabricators converted cargo vessels into long-range pursuit craft. Each ship's hull bore the same distinctive profile, sleek, dark, and purposefully unremarkable. Perfect for blending into the cosmic background radiation. The prototype's neural interface is ready for testing, her assistant reported, holding up a tablet displaying the latest simulation results. Maya nodded, her reflection in the reinforced glass overlaying the scene of transformation below. 10 years had passed since the attack, but the weight of purpose had only grown stronger. In the station's primary testing chamber, Captain Lai Wei connected himself to the prototype interface. His mind merged with decades of accumulated data, Mextorian ship signatures, energy patterns, and behavioral analyses. The neural link allowed human pilots to process vast amounts of information, thinking in patterns that would let them predict their quarry's movements across light years of space. Their technology relies on crystalline structures, Lai explained to the observation team. But their thinking, their cultural patterns, those are the real targets we need to understand. Through the interface, he demonstrated how Mextorian trade routes followed specific mathematical progressions, how their colony placements revealed deep-seated cultural preferences. Above the Indian Ocean, the International Space Academy's new Heritage Program facility rose from the waves like a silver mountain. Inside its halls, Commander Elena Rodriguez addressed the first class of multi-generational pilots. "Your training begins today, but it will not end with you," she said, gesturing to the wall where pieces of the destroyed Europa station were displayed alongside star charts. "You will learn, then teach. Your children will learn, then teach. We are not preparing for a battle. We are preparing for a hunt that will span centuries." The students, ranging from teenagers to retired veterans, absorbed her words with solemn determination. They knew they were part of something larger than themselves, a promise made to those who had been lost. In laboratories across the globe, scientists tackled the challenge of long-term space travel. Dr. James Chen, son of the lost Europa station researcher, led the team developing suspended animation technology. "The Mextorians think in decades," he told his research group. "We need to think in centuries. When we find them, it won't matter if it takes 3 years or 300. We'll be ready." The first breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A marine biologist studying deep-sea creatures found the key to cellular preservation in creatures that could survive extreme pressure changes. Within months, the discovery transformed into viable human stasis technology. Museums worldwide were converted into living archives. In New Delhi, the Museum of Remembrance displayed a piece of twisted metal from the Mars colony, alongside a detailed hologram of its original location. Children pressed their hands against the display glass, absorbing the story of what was lost, and what would one day be regained. The Lunar Observatory, rebuilt and expanded, turned its enhanced sensors toward distant stars. Dr. Sarah Morgan, daughter of the astronomer who first detected the attack, calibrated instruments that could track energy signatures across unprecedented distances. "They'll expect us to give up," she said, training her younger colleagues. "They'll expect time to erase their actions from our memory. They don't understand that for humanity, memory only grows stronger with time." In the shadow of Mount Fuji, the first completed long-range hunter ship stood ready for its maiden voyage. Its hull was painted with a subtle iridescence that would make it nearly invisible against the cosmic background. Inside, its systems were a perfect fusion of human ingenuity and reverse-engineered Mextorian technology. Commander Rodriguez stood before the assembled crowd at the launch ceremony. She held up a small piece of crystal, a fragment from one of the attacking ships. They thought their technology made them superior, she said, her voice carrying across the hushed gathering. But technology is just a tool. Our strength lies in our memory, our determination, and our willingness to pursue justice across generations. Today, we take the first step in a journey that our grandchildren may complete. Today, we begin the Great Hunt. The ship's name gleamed on its hull in both human and Mextorian script. Eternal memory. The Mextorian trading post Crystalline Nexus floated serenely in the outer edges of the Carina sector. Station Officer Meltrix watched the status displays with practiced boredom, the crystalline fragments of his body shifting in gentle patterns. 20 years had passed since the minor disciplinary action against that insignificant world called Earth. The memory had faded like starlight at dawn. His attention drifted to the sector's background radiation readings and stopped. For a fraction of a second, something had moved against the stars, something that absorbed light rather than reflecting it. Control, are we tracking any scheduled arrivals? Meltrix asked, his crystalline form shifting to alert yellow. Negative, officer. All lanes are clear for the next 6 cycles. The station's defensive grid registered the intruder first, a shadow darker than space itself, sliding through their outer perimeter like water through crystal. Before any alarm could sound, precision strikes disabled their sensor arrays and communication beacons. The unknown vessel emerged from its stealth approach, its hull decorated with an iridescent sheen that had perfectly mimicked the cosmic background radiation. On the bridge of the Eternal Memory, Captain Sarah Hayes watched the tactical display with calculated satisfaction. She was the granddaughter of General Hayes, who had helped activate the Eternal Hunt Protocol. Now, after 20 years of preparation, they would deliver humanity's response. All systems aligned. Her tactical officer reported, "We have their full attention." "Begin transmission," Sarah commanded, her voice carrying the weight of 2 decades of purpose. Across the crystalline nexus, every display screen flickered to life. The Mextorians watched in stunned silence as images began to play. The destruction of Europa Station, the last moments of the Mars colony, the disabled generation ships carrying sleeping colonists to Proxima Centauri. Each scene was accompanied by precise data, coordinates, casualty figures, timestamp. In the station's primary control room, Meltrix's crystalline form paled to pure white, the color of Mextorian fear. The final image showed Earth's unified response, ships being built, pilots training, children learning to recognize Mextorian energy signatures. The message ended with a simple statement in perfect Mextorian script. "We remember, this is only the beginning." The eternal memory vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving the station's non-essential systems disabled but intact. No lives were lost. No permanent damage was done. It was a demonstration, not of power, but of reach, and of memory. Within hours, similar reports began arriving from across Mextorian space. The trading post in the Vela sector, the research station orbiting Centauri Prime, the cultural embassy in the Hydra cluster, each target precisely struck, each left with the same message playing on endless repeat. In the Imperial Palace on Mextor Prime, High Admiral Vexeth's crystalline form churned with waves of dark purple, the color of rage and disbelief. How did they find these locations? How did they penetrate our defenses? His aide displayed the analysis. Each human ship had somehow matched its energy signature to the background radiation of space itself. Their neural interfaces processed tactical data faster than Mextorian crystal computers. Most disturbing of all, they had clearly studied Mextorian psychology, striking in a way that would ripple through their society's collective consciousness. On board the Eternal Memory, as her crew prepared for their next target, Captain Hayes recorded her log, First phase completed. The Mextorians now understand that distance will not protect them. Time will not make us forget. Each ship in our fleet carries the names of those we lost, and we will continue until justice is done. She looked out at the star-filled void, knowing that across human space, more ships were launching. Each crew carried the memories of the lost colonies. Each captain held the coordinates of future targets. Each generation would continue the hunt. The Mextorians had thought their attack would be forgotten in decades. Instead, they had initiated a pursuit that would echo across centuries. Humanity's first strike was complete, but the eternal hunt had only just begun. The Heritage Program simulation chamber hummed with activity as young cadets interfaced with a century of accumulated tactical data. Lieutenant Emma Hayes, great-great-granddaughter of the legendary First Strike Commander, watched her students navigate through holographic recreations of past encounters. Their neural interfaces glowed softly, processing information that would have overwhelmed their ancestors. Notice how the Mextorian defense patterns evolved after the Hydra cluster intervention, Emma pointed out, highlighting crystalline formations that shifted like schools of fish. They adapted, but so did we. Every encounter teaches us something new. In the chamber center, a teenage cadet named Miguel Chen, descendant of the lost Europa Station researcher, demonstrated an innovative approach to predicting Mextorian patrol routes. His neural interface processed centuries of behavioral data, finding patterns that even the advanced AI had missed. They think in crystalline structures, Miguel explained, his hands weaving through holographic star charts. But their culture flows like water through those structures. Understand the flow, and you can predict where they'll go decades before they make the decision. On the far edge of Mextorian space, the hunter ship Legacy of Europa emerged from its stealth approach. Its hull, incorporating a century of refinements, didn't just blend with background radiation, it actively manipulated local spacetime to redirect scanning beams. Captain Diana Patel studied the tactical display, watching the Mextorian colony below with the patience of a practiced hunter. Their shield geometry has evolved, her tactical officer noted. They're learning. As they should, Diana replied, her fingers tracing the familiar patterns. But we've had 100 years to study every adaptation. Initiate the approach sequence. The Legacy of Europa slipped through the colony's defensive grid like morning mist through crystal lattices. Its presence triggered no alarms, disturbed no sensors. Only when it reached its designated position did Diana authorize the reveal protocol. The colony's defenders watched in horror as the human ship materialized seemingly from empty space. Its hull bore the names of Earth's lost outposts, each inscribed in flowing Mextorian script that had been refined by generations of linguistic study. The message it broadcast was brief, a simple update to their century-old promise. The hunt continues. The memory endures. In the Mextorian Imperial Academy on Centauri Prime, young crystalline forms huddled around security feeds, studying recordings of human interventions. Their instructor, a veteran of 30 encounters, shifted through shades of cautionary amber as he explained. They learn. They adapt. Each generation builds upon the knowledge of the last. He warned his students. And most dangerous of all, they remember. Not like we remember, in data crystals and recordings. They carry their memories in their very essence, passing them down through bloodlines with a purity our best storage systems cannot match. Back on Earth, in the depths of the Marianas Command Center, Dr. Sarah Morgan III calibrated the latest generation of pursuit vessels. Like her grandmother and mother before her, she had dedicated her life to refining humanity's reach across the stars. The original neural interfaces required months of training. She explained to a visiting delegation, "Today's systems link directly with our inherited memories. Every pilot carries within them the experiences of 100 years of pursuit." In orbit, the newest class of hunter ships prepared for deployment. Their designs represented the pinnacle of human innovation. organic technology grown from the seeds of reverse-engineered Mextorian systems, enhanced by generations of dedicated research. Miguel Chen stood at the viewport of the Heritage Program facility, watching the ships depart. Above him, a piece of the original Europa station hung in honored display, its presence a reminder of why they continued the hunt. His neural interface hummed softly, processing tactical data that would guide the next generation of hunters. A century has passed, he mused to his students, but time means something different to humanity than it does to the Mextorians. For them, 100 years is an era. For us, it's barely the beginning. We don't measure our commitment in years or decades. We measure it in the promise we made to those we lost. The hunter ships vanished into fold space, carrying humanity's memory and purpose to distant stars. The hunt continued, as it would for generations to come. High Chancellor Vexrith stood before the great window of the Imperial Palace on Mextor Prime, his crystalline form reflecting the light of 3 setting suns. The once proud spires of the capital had been redesigned over the centuries, their elegant artistic flourishes replaced with practical defensive geometries. Beauty sacrificed for survival. Another trade route has been closed, his advisor reported, shifting through shades of worried green. The outer colony in the Perseus Arm requested immediate withdrawal of their outposts. They say the defensive costs exceed resource values. Vexrith, great-grandson of the admiral who had ordered the Earth intervention, felt the familiar weight of inherited consequences. The Empire had spent centuries adapting, fortifying, preparing, yet the humans always seemed one step ahead, their hunter ships appearing like ghosts to remind them of their past actions. In the Academy of Imperial Defense, Instructor Melthen displayed tactical recordings to a new generation of security officers. The footage showed a human vessel, the memory eternal, materializing within the supposedly impenetrable shields of their most secure installation. Note how they didn't destroy the facility, Melthen highlighted, his form shifting to analytical blue. They simply demonstrated their ability to reach it. Their purpose was not destruction, it was reminder. A student raised a crystalline appendage. Why don't they accept our peace offerings? We've offered them technologies far beyond their original capabilities. Because, Melthen responded, his color deepening, they don't want our technology. They want accountability. Each ship carries the names of their lost colonies. Each crew bears the inherited memory of their destroyed outposts. They will not be satisfied with mere compensation. In the Grand Archive, Master Historian Hellerext studied centuries of accumulated data on human psychology. The walls around him displayed a temporal map of their pursuit, each encounter, each demonstration, each message left behind. The pattern revealed something his people had only begun to understand. Their strength lies not in their weapons, he recorded in his daily observations, but in their ability to pass purpose from generation to generation without degradation. Where we store memories in crystals that can be archived and forgotten, they carry them in their very essence, teaching their young to feel the weight of events they never witnessed firsthand. The Empire's trade networks, once spanning dozens of sectors, had contracted significantly. The cost of defending far-flung assets against an enemy that could appear anywhere, at any time, had become prohibitive. Colonies withdrew to more defensible positions, trading routes shortened, and the once expansive civilization began to turn inward. In the Imperial Council chamber, the debate that had raged for centuries continued. We could overwhelm them with our superior numbers, a military advisor argued, his form pulsing with aggressive red. End this pursuit once and for all. And then what? Vexrith questioned. Face an enemy that would rebuild and return, generation after generation, carrying the memory of not one attack but two. They don't think as we do. Time doesn't weaken their resolve. It strengthens it. The Council viewed the latest peace offering they planned to send. Rare technologies, star charts of unexplored regions, ancient artifacts of immense cultural value. Yet they already knew Earth's response. It never changed. The humans would broadcast the same coordinates, the locations of their destroyed colonies, along with their unwavering message. We remember. In his private chambers, Vexrith accessed the restricted historical archives, studying the original warning given by the Khazari ambassador. The words, dismissed so easily by his ancestors, now read like prophecy. They will pass the story of your aggression from parent to child, transform their civilization around the goal of reaching you, and pursue that purpose until it's fulfilled. The High Chancellor watched the latest reports of human hunter ships passing through their defensive grids like shadows through crystal. His form shifted to the deep blue of realization. Their civilization had become trapped not by human weapons or technology, but by the weight of a memory that refused to fade. The Empire had thought time would be their ally. Instead, it had become their prison, each year bringing not forgetfulness, but another generation of humans who carried within them the undiminished purpose of their ancestors. The crystal gardens of Mextor Prime once sparkled with the light of 3 suns. Now, defensive shields cast perpetual shadows across the capital. Young Selvera, a student at the Imperial Academy of History, watched holographic records of her world from centuries past. The contrast between then and now struck her like a physical force. Your great-grandfather served on the council during the Earth intervention, her instructor noted, observing her reaction. What do you see in these records? Selvera's form shifted through thoughtful shades of blue. I see pride-blinding wisdom. I see a civilization that thought power meant superiority. She gestured to the modern skyline beyond the archive windows. And I see the cost of that mistake. In the orbital defense station, Commander Lin Chen of the hunter ship Legacy Eternal watched the Mextorian capital through advanced sensors. 5 centuries of human determination had led to this moment. Her ship carried within its memory banks the complete records of the lost colonies, and in her blood ran the lineage of Europa Station's researchers. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, her communications officer reported. It's different this time. The message came not from the Imperial Palace or military command, but from the public assembly, a gathering of ordinary Mextorian citizens. Their words, transmitted in both human and Mextorian languages, carried the weight of generations. We, the people of the Mextorian Empire, acknowledge the crimes of our past. We have lived 5 centuries under the shadow of our ancestors' actions. Our children scan the stars in fear. Our culture has turned from exploration to isolation. We cannot undo what was done, but we can finally face it. We ask not for mercy, but for justice. In the assembly hall, Selvera stood before her people, her young crystalline form glowing with purpose. The humans never sought our destruction. They sought accountability. Each generation of their hunters carried the memory of loss, not to destroy us, but to ensure we could never forget. Today, we choose to remember with them. The Imperial archives were open to human observers. Young Mextorians, led by descendants of the original command structure, began translating 5 centuries of records. Every decision, every order, every name in the chain of command that had authorized the Earth attack was documented with crystalline precision. In orbit, Commander Chen received the transmissions with careful optimism. Her ship's neural interface processed centuries of tactical data, searching for any sign of deception. Instead, it found something unprecedented, genuine change rippling through the crystalline patterns of Mextorian society. The Assembly's next broadcast carried proof of their sincerity. The names of every officer in the original attack chain of command, traced through 5 centuries of records. The locations of every piece of data related to the Earth intervention. Most significantly, the current locations of all surviving descendants of those responsible, each one willing to face human justice. We have studied your memory. Selvera's message continued. We have learned that true strength lies not in the ability to attack, but in the courage to face consequences. The children of those who gave the orders now offer themselves to your judgment. In the Heritage Program facility on Earth, Director Miguel Chen IV reviewed the Mextorian transmissions with his staff. The neural interfaces hummed as they processed generations of tactical and cultural data, confirming what seemed impossible: genuine transformation. 5 centuries, he mused, studying the patterns. 5 centuries of patience, determination, and memory have led to this moment. The assembly hall of Mextor Prime, filled with citizens, their crystalline forms shimmering with complex emotions. They watched as their representatives formally documented their acceptance of responsibility, not just for the attack, but for 5 centuries of refusing to acknowledge it. Commander Chen's message to Earth was brief but historic. The hunt has served its purpose. They remember now. And more importantly, they understand. In the Crystal Gardens, Selvera looked up at the defense shields that had shadowed her world for centuries. Soon they would be lowered, not in surrender, but in acceptance. The long hunt was ending, not through destruction, but through the very thing humans had sought all along: the pure, undiminished memory of truth. The crystal spire of the Galactic Council sparkled with renewed purpose as Ambassador Catherine welcomed the newest delegation to its chambers. His ancient scales caught the light just as they had 5 centuries ago, when he first warned the Council about humanity's unique nature. "Welcome, representatives of Earth and Mextor Prime," he announced, his translator perfectly matching the harmonics of both species. "Today we witness the formal resolution of the longest pursuit in recorded galactic history." The human delegation was led by Director Miguel Chen IV, whose family line stretched back to the Europa Station. Beside him stood Commander Lin Chen, her hunter ship Legacy Eternal, now peacefully orbiting the Council world. The Mextorian delegation was headed by Selvera, her crystalline form glowing with the calm blue of acceptance. 5 centuries ago, Catherine continued, this chamber dismissed warnings about humanity's capacity for multi-generational memory. Today, we gather to document the lessons learned at great cost. The Council chambers displayed holographic recordings from the past 500 years. The initial attack on Earth's colonies, the activation of the Eternal Hunt Protocol, the centuries of patient pursuit, and finally, the Mextorian transformation. Each image was accompanied by data crystals containing first-hand accounts from both species. Selvera stepped forward, her voice carrying across the chamber. The greatest power of humanity is not their technology or their determination, though both are formidable. It is their ability to carry memory through time without degradation. Where we stored our history in crystals that could be archived and forgotten, they carried it in their very essence. The chamber's central display showed the newly established memorial gardens on Mextor Prime. The defensive shields that had shadowed the capital for centuries were gone, replaced by crystalline monuments. Each structure contained the names of those lost in the Earth attacks, their stories preserved in both human and Mextorian languages. The resolution has 3 components, Director Chen explained. First, the complete historical record, preserved by both our peoples. Second, the establishment of joint education protocols, ensuring future generations understand the price of actions taken without full understanding of their consequences. Third, the creation of the Galactic Memory Institute, where both our species will work together to study and teach the importance of cultural memory. In orbit, the hunter ships that had pursued their purpose across centuries were being transformed. Their advanced stealth systems and neural interfaces would now serve as the foundation for joint scientific ventures. The Legacy Eternal would become the first training vessel, teaching young pilots from both species about the power of shared purpose and understanding. Theron activated the final display, showing the original warning he had given 5 centuries ago. The Council dismissed this warning because we measured all species by our own standards. We failed to understand that humanity's strength lies not in their weapons or technology, but in their unique relationship with memory and time. The chamber fell silent as the official resolution was recorded. The Eternal Hunt Protocol was formally closed, its purpose fulfilled not through destruction, but through understanding. In its place, the Galactic Memory Accord was established, with Earth and Mextor Prime as its founding members. Let it be recorded, Theron proclaimed, that the longest pursuit in galactic history ended not with victory or defeat, but with transformation. The Mextorian Empire learned the price of dismissing human memory. Humanity demonstrated that justice need not mean destruction, and the galaxy learned that true strength often lies in understanding the unique nature of other species. As the delegates departed, a young Mextorian student approached Director Chen. "Is it true," she asked, her form shimmering with curiosity, "that humans will continue to tell this story to their children?" Chen smiled, touching the neural interface that carried 5 centuries of accumulated memory. "We will tell this story not as a tale of victory or vengeance, but as a lesson about the power of memory and the importance of understanding. Each generation will learn that the greatest changes come not from force of arms, but from the unwavering light of truth carried through time." Above them, the crystal spire caught the light of distant stars, its facets reflecting the combined wisdom of 2 civilizations that had learned, at last, to truly see each other.